So I'm gonna call this, the Parks Commission meeting to order. And is Mary Elizabeth on here? No.
Not yet.
Okay. And, looks like we have some of our, people who are gonna speak, so that's great. And I see Colby Lewis from Western Hills Little League on there, awesome. All right. Roll call,
Diana Wallace.
Laurie Mills.
Melissa Morrow.
Don Hudson.
Victoria Johnson.
Great. The very first thing that we have is discussion possible action on the minutes from the May 14th Park Commission meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Great,
Second.
great. All in any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes. Discussion possible action on minutes from the May 24th. That was the park site visit. There's not really much information there other than to say that we did it and we posted it. Great. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Victoria,
Second.
Don. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, that motion passes. All right, because I know this will go really fast, let's do update from Western Hills Little League and Western Hills Girls Softball, which is number 7. And I believe Desiree, are you, or Ashley, are you gonna give the update about Western Hills Little League, just what, that they have fulfilled their obligations?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about the lease. Yes, so they only had a requirement in their current lease document for a one-time $30,000 capital expenditure. They fulfilled that. I believe that went to council, probably 6 months ago. They kind of talked about that and just kind of reaffirmed that, yes, that had been completed. So now all they have to do, they make their annual payments to us. I believe that's coming up in August, so we haven't gotten this year's yet, and then they have to let us know and get our approval before doing any kind of capital project. So that would all have to be approved by council. Minor maintenance can be approved by someone here at staff as long as it's under $1,000 and just general maintenance. So
Because they are required to do the 30,000, it doesn't mean that they can let the facility run down. They'd still have to maintain it. If there was anything
Right.
unsafe that has to do with baseball, they would still have to maintain it and invest more funds.
yes, everything, bleachers, backstop, dirt, bases, all of that is their responsibility. So if there's an issue with that, just you can always let us know and we can pass on that to them. It is their responsibility to maintain those.
Go ahead.
Go.
I was gonna say, I know Colby is on here. I don't know if anyone else is from Western Hills Little League or girls softball. Do you have anything to add, Colby?
Just that we did receive communication that some of the end caps on the bleachers need to be addressed. So we're gonna. I'm actually ordering parts for that today, and then our subcontractor KMI will come out and do the install on that as soon as we have the parts in place. I think we've been on a regular maintenance schedule with dirt and maintaining Hatley 1 without any issue. I think if there's a requirement to have council or anybody approve anything over $1,000, we may need to talk about some batting cage repairs that are going to happen in the off season. But I need to get a quote for that. But outside of that, there's really not much else going on the baseball side of things. I'm not sure if Steve was able to join from softball, but I don't think there's really much on his side either.
Has your season ended?
Our season has ended. We should be off of Hatley. We're going to let the dirt settle and then continue to maintain it throughout the summer. And then fall season, we'll probably start practices mid-September. I don't have an exact date on that yet.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
I just wanted to ask the 30,000 they spent, was that mostly for the fence, for the fencing?
I believe that was fencing when they did that.
So we did, at that point, we did fencing. We redid dirt probably about when Cam was still president, which would have been almost 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And just some major dugout updates as well. We put French drains in front of the dugouts to help with drainage there, so we don't have standing water on that field anymore as well. That was all part of that. But yeah, if there's any other cooperative projects that you guys are interested in exploring or anything else that you see out there that needs addressing, I run facilities for the foreseeable future, and I'm happy to answer your questions or talk to you guys about that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, great. And then, Ashley, since you're standing up there at number 8, update regarding maximum number of field participants. That's what, Michaela's gonna do it? Great. And this is basically what council then approved at
That
the
is
last
correct.
meeting.
Yes, that's correct. So at the May 15th city council meeting, city council approved your recommendation, with one clarification for fields 3, 4, and 5. And so the max, participants for field 1 will be 30, and that's just for that field. The max, for field 2, the max will be, 30 also, for that field. And then for fields 3, 4, and 5, there will be a max of 60 combined, of all the fields, and that includes staff, coaches, and all participants in general.
Great.
So yeah.
All right. Any questions? Great.
All right.
All right. Well, then let's get up to, I believe it's number 4, discussion possible action regarding park drainage proposals. In your packet, you'll see that there were 2 different drainage things, and some of you may have been confused by the first one. I was, except I came to the last city council meeting. That's actually a, what do you call it? It's a kind of a place for water to come and drain into before it's sent on.
Right.
It's a drainage pond,
Drain,
kinda
yeah,
small.
yeah, a small retention.
Yeah,
That's-
retention
pond,
pond.
yeah.
And so the main thing on that, my understanding is that they're gonna move where the existing outlet is. Is that?
I believe the outlet will stay where it is. I guess the purpose of that is to add a wall that would hold the water a little bit longer before it would just immediately go into those pipes and start running out. And we do have Chris Maxwell Gaines. He's here with IWS to discuss anything about that or that second proposal that was in the packet. And then just to give kind of a quick rundown, because we also added something else a little bit later. So we also have Ted Moss with Moss Verde here. They provided a proposal for a full park drainage study, and then just a few minutes ago today before this meeting, we uploaded a presentation from Kay Fries and Associates. They're our city engineer. The council had asked them for some additional calculations on kind of this entire drainage basin and what the park was contributing compared to the different areas of the city. So they have that here. So I think they're all here ready to talk and answer questions. I don't know if we want them to present or not, but we can pull up any of the proposals here or their presentations. So
Great.
just let us know.
So I'm trying to think of the best order of business. I'm tempted to do the K Freeze first.
Okay.
Because that was what they sort of presented to council. And remind me, who's the person from K Freeze?
We should have AB. AB Salinas,
AB?
are you ready? There it is.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you share a little bit about what you shared at the last council meeting about drainage in the park?
Sure. And if I can, I'll share a copy of the presentation that I have on my computer, Ashley.
Did we
And is this looking at, which,
This is, I believe, what he talked about at that meeting was an overall.
but so
Um,
nothing that we have in here that I could pull up?
Well,
it's the very last presentation.
This-
He's gonna pull it up, but it has just been added to the packet. It's
it
the very
includes,
last.
it includes this. Does it have anything about the wall that goes behind the?
So, K-Freeze is not
Okay.
necessarily, I believe.
But I think it'll help with just understanding the overall of our park and what it contributes outside of the park to drainage.
So,
And in the packet that you're looking at, I can show you.
is it the Rollingwood Park drainage update, 611?
It's the very last.
1 under 4.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
got it. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll go through this fairly briefly, and if there's anything that you'd like me to come back into and explain in greater detail, happy to do that. But I think everyone here in the committee is familiar with the area of the park, and there's an interest in trying to address some of the drainage issues, one on a kind of a more localized perspective within the park, and then there's an interest in trying to do some more regional level improvements to alleviate flooding concerns that originate, offside of the park, and they drain, coming from Nixon Drive, and then there's some runoff that comes from the Western Hills Athletic Club along Pleasant Cove, and so those are two different, I guess, areas of concern, and they also have very different magnitudes of scope of work to address the problems. So what we had talked about at council was just, one was an overview of some of the drainage concerns that exist within the park, and what's shown here in the aerial image is just a rough boundary in green of the city park and some additional area that the city owns. It's approximate. This is just kind of a hand sketch to show that limitation, or not that project boundary. And then through conversations with city staff and with council and input from notes that I've received from this committee, just an understanding of some of the issues. And so there was discussions about around the ball fields where there's some erosion concerns and how to address that. There's been an interest in seeing how we can improve the existing detention facility that drains from this parking lot into this pond area, and then it outfalls into Nixon Drive. So that's what some of these proposals here we'll discuss later on. And then some concerns about the runoff that comes from the WAC and through 6 Pleasant Cove and towards the creek. So those are kind of some areas that we were looking at and seeing how we could potentially address those. This is an illustration of the same area, just showing drainage easements and contours, so you can kind of see the relief from the baseball fields. This is kind of a high point, and runoff generally drains in the direction of these black arrows. So from this kind of hilltop, it's draining to the west and north and across Pleasant Cove. Another view of this same area with kind of just showing some flooding, inundation mapping. So this shows that the roadway on Nixon Drive serves as a major conveyance method for this drainage area, and then it goes into the creek at this point, and there's significant amount of flow and kind of backup in the system as it goes across this culvert and continues further downstream. And so during our discussions at the last council meeting was wanting to understand better, like, what is a contributing drainage area to from the park and from offsite as it comes to Pleasant Cove. And so this is an illustration of these contributing drainage areas. So beginning at the downstream end, this is Pleasant Cove, and then this is generally where the creek is. There's approximately, when you total this up, there's approximately 54 acres that drains around to this point here when you include drainage area 1, which is 46 acres, and then on the east side where the WAC is another 8 acres or so. Doing some kind of rough approximation of peak flows that are coming to this point for the 25-year storm event is probably somewhere in the order of like 250 to 300 CFS. So that's a large amount of flow. And when we look at it, how it relates to the park, this parking lot over here that contributes to where this parking lot pond is is roughly about half an acre, 0.6 acres, and drains approximately 5 CFS. So when you look at in the order of 250 to 300 CFS, and then this is 5 CFS. So the point being that to do a substantial reduction in the peak flow, it's going to require a significant amount of detention to do that. So what we then looked at was, what by, I don't know, a rule of thumb or just kind of get an order of magnitude approximation, like what kind of storage would we need to have some significant reductions in the peak flow? And kind of just doing some ballpark math, it worked out to what we thought was about 35 CFS. To get a 35 CFS reduction, we need about an acre foot of detention storage to do that. And the city park land itself is about just under 9 acres. And to kind of put that into perspective of what that looks like on the map is this blue square represents roughly 1 acre of land. And so if we were to say try to do a reduction of about 100 CFS, so to get that would be 3 times this amount. So 100 CFS would be 3 acre feet. And so we'd be looking at if we were to place a pond somewhere, let's just say it was, I don't know, here, just generally, it would be, let's say, a 3 foot deep pond, about acre feet, or 1 acre in area. That could potentially provide a reduction of 100 CFS, which is pretty significant. But that's kind of the scale of project that we would be looking at to start chipping away and really reducing that flow. It ends up being a pretty, I think, substantial and costly project. And so that's something that certainly I think we can evaluate and provide some solutions for. But before we went through the effort of doing a costly study and solution, we wanted to make sure that what we are doing is something that would be a project that could be constructed. And so the concern is, like, we can study this and we can come up with a solution, but if it happens to be where the funding is not available right now, then it may not be in the city's best interest to do this study right now and to focus on trying to address some of these smaller drainage concerns that exist out in the park right now. But I've covered a lot, and I've covered it, I think, fairly quickly, so I'm sure there's a good amount of questions, and I'll pause here.
So,
Go ahead.
when you did the presentation at City Council, basically I saw there were 2 areas for the retention pond. One was where the existing one is, and the improvement to that would be in your packet. This is to change this to make it more effective. And then the other one was to put it in the back, kind of the back park.
By Pleasant
where,
Grove.
yeah, where you had it on that. And I can't remember the scale of how expensive it was going to be, but it was not something the Parks Commission would consider in its budget, basically.
We have the no.
Yeah. So, so all that to say, and again, you can tell me if I'm wrong, the synopsis that I'm giving, but essentially, we don't have a drainage problem, so to speak, or any major drainage problem that we're trying to fix within the park itself. This is all just things that come off and go into other areas. That's not to say that at some point the council might not want to address those. I know the Pleasant Cove, that one is an issue when there is big flooding, but I don't believe that, this is all to say that I don't believe that any plans that we are considering right now will be affected by this drainage information that came. And so the reason why I wanted you all to see this was to feel confident that the projects that at least we've got sort of on our docket right now should not be impacted by any sort of major drainage change that the council is considering at this time. Ashley, does that kind of, yep.
What was the cost of the retention pond? Ballpark?
Yeah, do you remember,
Just out of
Ed?
curiosity.
I mean, I would say ballpark, it's going to be around $1 million once you add in excavation, outfall, connection to receiving flow from the street, and engineering and surveying costs.
Got it, thank you.
Right.
Are you talking about specifically the additional pond that would be further down the park, not the one by the parking lot, which needs to be done regardless?
Right. This would be if we're talking about at a more regional scale, trying to do some meaningful flood hazard reduction. Then I think it's a pretty big project. But what's on, I think, in front of you today, as far as the parking lot pond and some of these other improvements, those are more to address just localized flooding concerns on the park.
Got it.
So with the 1 acre one that you have up there, is that actually better addressed further upstream?
It can be a combination of the two, and that would be something that we would evaluate further. But as far as potential regional detention sites, it could be, as an example, it could be something like underground detention and replace this parking lot. It could be placing a pond over here. There's pros and cons with each of them. One is, when you look at these areas, this parking lot, which is here, only receives, a portion of the runoff, whereas if we were to locate it over here, for example, there would be more area that we could probably intercept with this pond as it enters into the creek. But the negative to this would be that you would still have a significant amount of flow within the street. So I don't know, those would be two potential site locations, and we'd have to look into that further of just kind of what's the best solution and combination of it.
Okay, either way, not really a park issue. The question, another question I might have, and this is kind of regarding parking lots. If we went to the west side of the park, is there anything you would advise us not to do there that would contribute more to drainage downstream? I mean, because
We are talking about right here.
where,
So they haven't been, I do not believe they've been asked to, they are looking at current conditions.
right,
So they weren't asked to say, let's say we were to clear out all the trees in that downflow from the WAC
right.
and make it a new park area. I do not believe they were asked to address that.
But you couldn't tell from the study you've done now, if we did something to improve parking on the west side, whether there's something you would or would not recommend we do, or if there's something that you would say don't do, it's gonna increase the drainage.
And we're talking about this parking lot over here.
Where is the cursor? I don't see it. No, further to the west of the park. I'm sorry, not west, east.
So on the east
Yeah,
side
on
of
the east
the
side of the
ball
park.
fields.
Yeah,
Okay,
further
Yeah.
east even, I think.
right.
The line
Let's see
between
if
the
I can draw
WAC
that.
and the park.
We're talking generally this area over here, right? Are you able to see my screen?
I don't see the cursor.
We can't see the cursor.
No.
But
Oh,
did
there
you
it
see
is.
that? Maybe I'm just sharing the PowerPoint.
So you know where the swimming pool is?
Right.
Between the swimming pool and the fields 3, 4, and 5.
Understood. Let me see if I can reshare my screen here. Okay. So we're talking about this area.
That's better,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, right now it's pretty wild and pervious. do you see, if we decided to upgrade the parking lot there, anything that we should not consider?
Well, what we would want to be careful of is increasing the impervious cover and thereby reducing the amount of infiltration that's currently out there. So that means increasing the flow. So I think with that improvement, there should be some drainage analysis that accompanies those improvements to just show that there's not an increase in flow, and if there is, there would need to be some mitigation with that.
Okay.
I have a question. A 1 acre square foot pond, 3 foot deep, how long will that work with a 250 cubic foot per second flow? Is it just pretty much a straight pond that when it's full, and seems like 250 cubic feet per second would fill that up pretty fast.
Right. So what we would be doing is we would be trying to hold some of that flow so that we're reducing the amount that comes out of the pond. So if, let's say in this case, we're talking about somewhere around 250 to 300 CFS, and just kind of again rough math, this culvert over here across Pleasant Cove, I think was I don't know, I saw some survey information of like a 54-inch or 60-inch pipe, probably has about a capacity of 150 CFS or so. So like if we reduced flow by 100 CFS, we would be then discharging from the pond, let's say 150 CFS. So it's going to come into the pond and then it's going to pass through. And this volume is intended to reduce that peak. So there's still going to be flow that comes out during this storm.
The pond would fill up in probably a half hour or so at 250 CFS.
Well, the rainfall, it's not going to fall, that peak won't be sustained throughout the entire duration of the storm event. So there'll be a peak where it gets up to 250 CFS, but typically it's not for that long of a duration. So the flow is going to build up, it's going to accumulate over some time. It'll get as high as that amount, and then it'll peak back down, kind of like a bell curve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so that's a great overview of the drainage park. Thanks so much, Kay Freeze, for helping us with that. What I'd like to move on to is I believe is it the IWS, or are they the ones who did the?
Two different, yes, the two first proposals.
Okay.
The retaining wall area and then that retaining wall.
Yeah, let's start with the retaining wall area, because I know that's something that it was our number one thing, and so we would like.
Upper Park one?
Mhm, the one right behind the field house, yep. So.
Well, I just meant the document is called Upper Park.
Oh, thank you. So, IWS, can you show us what the plan is?
Absolutely, yeah. Hello, everyone. There, I don't know about this screen sharing thing. Let me see if I can figure that out.
You should be able to share it now, Chris.
Okay, there you go. Where?
And for everyone at home, these are in the packet. Just, I know you're not able to see the live video, but we have it. They're all in the packet.
All right, does everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And can you see my cursor
Yes.
moving? Okay. Yeah, so when I was, I guess, brought on to kind of look at this issue, the issues that were brought to me was that this area with the flow of water coming across it, starting to erode this area a little bit more actively, and then of course that water proceeding across the trail here and potentially causing erosion issues across the trail. And so again, there was some ideas that brought up and I don't know if it was from, past, park commission meetings and different things. But the idea was, there needs to be something done in this area in order to, prevent that. And so, basically, and I can't remember the iterations or the potential ideas that were brought up, but, my idea is essentially using the existing wall as a template of what it could look like. And so this existing wall could really just be extended. So rather than, and then rather than creating a terrace of sorts, that this would actually be the catch basin where, as this water is flowing off the field house, around the field house, et cetera, it could be channeled into this area behind the wall. I guess there were some ideas about doing a wall and then doing a French drain behind the wall. But really the idea is that during these larger events, there's going to be a lot of surface water flow. And so that is the ultimate culprit in this, that we're trying to stop eroding this hillside and then also the trail. So the idea is to use this wall as essentially, if you think of it like a curb, in order to translate that water into an inlet basin that would then translate it to an underground pipe that would take it over to the hillside there, and then let it go on down the hillside underneath the trail. And so, from a elevation view, if this was the top of the wall, basically the grading behind the wall would, take the water down to the inlet basin here, which would translate that water to that 8-inch pipe. And then there was some concerns about the erosion down now the hillside, and so definitely I discussed some energy dissipation happening there, so I could further detail that out with some riprap ideas there. But essentially, that is it. So are there questions from my explanation?
Does anybody have questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So on your page 1 of 1, which shows it shows the sides sloping down, pond elevation view.
This
Doesn't-
is a different project.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's the little
Okay, pardon me.
improvement on the detention
Okay.
pond over by the parking lot.
Well,
Yeah.
similar question. You said, let's see, your backfill and grade to inlet basin, see detail. Is there any gravel in that to let the water flow down to that pipe, or is it, what is the
Well,
backfill?
Yeah, that's going to be kind of the issue because of that area and the tree canopy. The initial backfill is needed in order to provide the slope to take the water down to that inlet basin. But in terms of the cover, it may be very difficult to grow some sort of grass, and obviously that would need irrigation and such. So, potentially the best option may be a gravel covering over that area, because right now it's a pretty much a denuded hill, right, because of the erosion and water coming through it. But yeah, trying to backfill, or cover the backfill with some sort of erosion proofing material would be beneficial, and doing it with a grass product, a turf product, is probably going to be difficult. So yeah, so over the backfill that is used to actually provide the underlying slope to get the water moving to the inlet basin, there probably needs to be some sort of river rock cover on top of that.
So there would be a French drain of sorts, as the top.
Well, the river rock would just cover the underlying soil that's used to backfill and grade, just as a erosion prevention. Of course, water's going to move through the gravel, but really the whole mechanism is just the overall slope that is developed, and then the wall acting like a curb to help push the water to make sure that it goes into that inlet basin and gets translated to the underground pipe.
Seems to me a heavy rain, the water would just run across, but if it was dirt on top.
Yes, and that's why I'm mentioning that probably some sort of river rock on top of the backfill is needed to reduce, to prevent future erosion.
I'm not exactly sure I see how that would.
So
would
it's
look.
not like, you build this wall and then you just fill it all behind the wall with gravel, right? That is not what I feel like is the best solution here. Basically, it's building that wall up so that it mimics the height of the existing wall. And so then once you do that, you're going to have an area behind it that you need to make sure to slope towards the location of the inlet basin. And so just filling that whole area with river rock, sure, you could possibly do that, but I just don't feel like, filling that entire area with rock is the best use of, or just you're spending extra cost and everything for, a bunch of rock behind a retaining wall. Because that it's already sloping down right towards the path, towards the trail. So now we just got to adapt the slope to ensure that it all pushes towards the inlet basin, rather than just ponding behind that wall.
So let me just give a synopsis of this. This is how you're an engineer, and this is how you see using that wall, and this is how you would design it. But this isn't a proposal necessarily of what the finished project would look like, whether it's rocks or grass or whatever ends up. What is the
Correct.
What is the
Yeah.
next step that we would need to take to move forward?
So I guess the next step, I guess, would be is if, if you completely understand the idea is that either the park commission or the city council, I guess, would vote to approve this design. And I also want to say that, I am an engineer, my company is an engineering firm, but we're also a design build contractor. So we employ, 15 to 20 guys who are going out and implementing my drainage designs every single day. So with that, there's a lot of direct feedback that I get over the years of what works, what doesn't work, versus myself just being an engineering company and not having, this kind of feedback of these drainage solutions. And so, also I look at cost and, extent of the problem and, does it need to throw a bunch of money, a huge budget at, something that may be that could be addressed in manners that's less expensive. So all those things kind of go into my thinking whenever I'm trying to devise a solution that needs to be 100%, right? So anyway, so I think the
So Chris,
next
sorry,
step.
because
Oh,
we have
go
a
ahead.
short amount of time, I'm gonna
Yep.
speed you up here a little bit. So, knowing all that, what would your recommendation be ultimately are you saying that you would not even put up this wall? Or are you saying you would put up the wall and put gravel and rock above it?
Oh, no, I put up the wall, do exactly as I'm saying. I'm just saying in my plan, I didn't necessarily call out the cover material over the backfill because of just not knowing the desires of the park commission of what that area that they want it to look like. Obviously trying to get some sort of grass material underneath the tree canopy growing, in my opinion, is difficult. So I just kind of wanted to leave it as this is the canvas of accomplishing the solution of translating that flow that's coming down the hill so that it gets it beyond that spot and then beyond the trail so that then there's no future erosion of that trail. So that's what this plan is. The final details of what that cover material is, whether it's river rock, whether it's St. Augustine grass, whatever, I guess that is still up to your decision on that.
Okay, so again, trying to move this forward, would it be possible, is anyone on a committee for this drainage project? Did we make a committee for that? Okay, the people who are on the
I don't
committee
think
for
we
this
did.
drainage project, will look it up. And your assignment will be to meet with Chris, in the next 2 weeks to talk about what the
I
next,
don't think we have that committee.
okay. Who would like to be
We
on?
had one for the field house
Yes.
specifically. And
Oh,
that
for the
was
field house.
Chad,
Yeah.
for
That's
the
right.
field house specifically.
Yeah, you're
That
right,
was
you're right.
Chad, Victoria, and myself.
Okay, so those 3 people, your assignment will be to meet with Chris and discuss, the next steps, whether it's gonna be grass, rocks, what are you guys gonna recommend? And you may recommend level A is the least expensive, level B, level C, up to you guys, but if one jumps out as a really good, then we would like to have you back at the next meeting to make a recommendation of how to move forward with that.
And Mary Elizabeth has a question.
Okay.
She wants clarification on what energy dissipation means.
Yeah, so energy dissipation is just when you have water flow coming out of the end of a pipe, it has a higher velocity on it. So it could cause potential for more, a direct erosion down that hillside. So the idea there is to have some sort of head wall to ensure that the end of the pipe is protected. And then when that water's coming out, you want to dissipate it as it, flows down that hillside. So, it can be accomplished with just basically large riprap, which is large boulders going down that hillside. Again, it's just to disrupt the flow of that water that is shooting out of the end of the pipe.
Right.
So that's what energy
To slow it
dissipation
down.
is. Yeah.
And Chris, does that seem reasonable that they would meet with you and you guys could come up with a couple of alternatives and then get, and even get bids so that we could be looking at actual numbers by the?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead, Ashley.
I was just gonna mention that is kind of the intention of his design, so, once, approved and the council approves those, we can then take those out for bid and provide them to contractors and get, the
Great.
actual estimates on how much it would cost. But I think it would be helpful to know, what that desired cover would be.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Good.
Okay?
All right. So we're not gonna take any action on this item, but we hope we're gonna move forward so that we'll be able to. And sadly, tomorrow is the council meeting, so we wouldn't be able to be on their agenda. Our recommendation wouldn't have made it to tomorrow anyway, so. All right, well, we'll aim to have that for July. The next thing that we're gonna discuss is, the trail rehab project. Oh, go ahead.
We actually have Mas Verde here as well for their drainage proposal
Oh.
to discuss. They are online.
And which one is their drainage proposal, though?
Theirs is also in the packet. Theirs is the larger one about a full park drainage study.
A full drainage study?
Theirs is a study.
There's just the one right above it.
Yeah, I can pull it up.
Okay.
It's the detention pond.
It would be Mas Verde drainage
Oh, no,
proposal.
that's not it.
It's the third one in item 4, in the third unit before. And we have Ted Moss here with Mas Verde.
Is that, is that the trees, though?
It's the trees.
That's the trees, that's not
This is not
drainage.
He did too.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
We have one for trees as well as this one.
okay.
This one came in.
It's the trees.
Yeah, and this is Ted Moss. Hey,
ahead.
everybody. I gave 2 proposals, one for tree planting and then another one for a more site-specific drainage analysis for the upper portion of the park, the fields, and then how that would affect 2 alternatives that we would provide for drainage solutions, kind of from the top portion of the park to the bottom portion.
Okay. I don't think I saw it. It came in when?
It was put in the packet on yesterday.
Oh, yep,
it came
then
in
I
over the
haven't
weekend, so
seen
it
it.
may not have been reviewed yet,
Yeah.
but he's here to discuss it. It's basically this is that overall park drainage study that I believe the park commission recommended that city council have completed. This is a proposal for completing that park drainage study, and I think it kind of does what Mr. Salinas was talking about he would recommend a more like site-specific, you know, improvements to the park, and I think that's what this is trying to kind of show how we would get that taken care of.
So would it affect the walking trail?
So yeah, so part of our when we come up with a conceptual design for two alternatives, we would have to be in communication, coordination with the trail contractor to make sure that we're all in alignment on how to get underneath the trail or past the trail or whatever we decide to do.
Okay, so since I don't know if did anyone read it? Yeah, I don't think any of us were able to see it. Yeah, but your time limit is 2 minutes. Are you capable of doing that? Well, I mean, you tell me, how much time do you need
How much time do I need for what? Sorry.
for telling us about the drainage?
It's the drainage, it's the
I mean,
trees.
I haven't done, we haven't done any work to actually figure out what our alternatives are. That was part of the proposal that I provided. Two things, though, I want to just say is that we would be conscious of the root zones, the critical 50% critical root zone of all those live oaks. So we would want to factor in backfilling and how much backfill we put on top of those trees for whatever alternative solution we
We're not
come
on
up
the-
with.
Yeah, sorry, we're not on the tree. We're not.
Correct.
talking about the-
Yeah. I'm talking about the drainage.
Okay. That's
Because
fine.
there's existing live oaks that are in that area
Yes.
in between the trail and the building, right?
Oh, so are you talking about then the behind the field house?
Correct.
Okay, so, okay.
This is whole
Okay.
park.
No, well,
I'm
that's-
just
that's
just
right.
pointing out
This is
some.
very confusing because I don't understand if what you're presenting is about the whole park, just behind the field house, or something else. That's why I'm trying to stay on this.
Right, this
Gotcha.
is the entire park. This
Yeah.
is the full park drainage study that the park commission requested council begin working on. Council enlisted Mas Verde. We did that park walkthrough a couple months ago with members of Mas Verde.
Yes.
They've been working with an engineer to complete this scope of work.
Okay,
This is full park.
so, and when you say engineer, were they working with the K-Freeze or with IWS?
They were working with their own engineer. So this is separate from IWS. This is separate from the trail rehabilitation, though I believe they have been in contact with Mr. Eishen to talk about the
Okay.
proposed trail improvements. But it's kind of three separate tracks that have been going sort of separately.
Okay,
if that makes
well,
sense.
if at all possible, because I'm trying to stay on one item at a time, then I guess just talk about how long is it gonna take you to talk about the overview park drainage proposal?
20 seconds.
Great, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll do a drainage analysis of the park, more site-specific, figure out what our points of concentration are, CFS in relation coming off of the field, come up with conceptual design with two alternatives, present that to the city, and then with that would be cost estimates for or cost range for both of the alternatives. And I think that's it. I don't have the proposal in front of me because I'm in the field, but I think that's about it. And then coordinating with the trail contractor as well to make sure that his design works with ours, and yeah, it all meshes.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, and then we are gonna ask for you back in a second, in a few minutes when we talk about the tree proposal.
Okay.
Okay, so, Ted, will you talk to us about, y'all's walkthrough and your recommendations and the bid that you have in here?
Yeah, sure. So,
This is item number 5.
yeah, my name's Tim Eishen. I own Eishen's General Contracting with my wife, Ava Sharifian. And we met here at the park I guess a week ago to take a look at the trail system on the upper portion of the trail. There's, I put together a little map that I believe was added to your packet as maybe an addendum or another attachment. It's basically just a little visual, just so that everybody's on the same page of what we're about to review here. Basically, we looked at approximately 1,900 linear feet of trail that makes a loop around the fields up here at the top. Now, we've kind of already reviewed a series of drainage reports to show that on the north and west sides of that trail system, you have a lot of evidence of erosion, some sheet flowing water. So you see in this exhibit here that I've proposed two different types of stabilized decomposed granite trails material for completing the rehabilitation of this loop. On the north and west side, there's about 900 linear feet of what we propose to use Stalock decomposed granite for, and that's a heavier wax binder that's used with 1/4 inch minus decomposed granite and sort of behaves similar to asphalt, but still provides a natural trail surface and holds up well to those types of environmental conditions. And then in the blue line is another approximately 900 linear feet of what we propose to use stabilizer decomposed granite, and that's a water-based binder that you also mix with that 1/4 inch minus decomposed granite. So cohesively same material aggregate, but two different binders for two different environmental conditions that you're exhibiting in this park area. I have a pretty detailed itemized estimate that everybody was able to look at, so I know that everybody's time is limited. I don't want to belabor anything any longer than needs to be, but if anybody has any questions, you know, I also provided a sort of written narrative of kind of bringing some context to this itemized estimate so that everybody can have a little bit of time to sort of, you know, dovetail those two things together. Is there any initial questions?
Is it considered pervious or impervious?
So, you know, all of this trail surface is going to have, it requires 3 inches of compacted road base underneath it. So, I mean, I think technically it's going to be considered impervious for that reason.
Is what's there now, is what is there now, is it considered impervious?
I don't know what's underneath that trail that's there, but if somebody put a weed barrier underneath it or any kind of material like that, all these trail surfaces, once they reach a certain amount of compaction, become somewhat impervious. And so I don't want to lie to you and say that it is going to be completely pervious when it's, you know, technically there's going to be some pervious nature to it, but not entirely, no.
Compared to what we have now in terms of maintenance, can you tell us a little bit about what we could expect?
Yeah, the Stalock holds up well to, you know, sheet flowing water. So we've successfully built low water crossings out of this material, in which it takes, you know, creek flow over the top of it. So you wouldn't exhibit the amount of erosion that you are exhibiting now. It would definitely address that problem. With all these natural trail surfaces, you are going to have to deal with mowing and edging and blowing, keeping the trail surface clean, making sure grass isn't growing into the trail. But the best thing for that is trail use. So as long as the trail's being used, you know, that keeps the grass and weeds out of there. You just got to do periodic maintenance. You're not going to be replacing material. That being said, you know, all these natural surface trails, depending on the type of exposure, the amount of different types of trail use, could require some, you know, annual maintenance and repairs. But, you know, I bring that up because I see maintenance equipment out there. You know, I see ATVs on the trail. Depends on how aggressively those are being used on the trail and during what conditions those are being used on the trail. If it's saturated, those are knobby tires, if those are really heavy vehicles and that type of directional traffic on the trail, it just kind of, it depends.
And this bid included digging out where the trim is right now?
Correct.
And did it have putting in something underneath them or just digging it out?
Yeah, so we propose to remove the limestone block edging and then repurpose that edging back into place, but stabilizing it with a Portland cement stabilized sand. So we basically take like a concrete sand and mix Portland cement into that. And we use that to level the stones and set them together. And then once that is hydrated, it sets up like concrete, but you're not investing in reinforced concrete footer underneath there. So it's sort of a tried and true method for stabilizing that block, preventing those problems that you're exhibiting now.
So we wouldn't have the same problem with the stones being moved out of place then after this?
No, not if done correctly. So we propose to get that fixed, and you'll see a line item in here for some additional limestone cut block to match what's there. That's just to make up the difference and replacing some of what isn't gonna make up the difference between what's recycled and what we need to complete the job.
If
But-
we were to phase this, because I think you mentioned that,
Mhm.
what would some natural phasing look like?
So, I think it's naturally divided into two phases. You kind of have this north and west side and then the south and east side. I think that it's going to be important to phase this project no matter what because of, park operations. The trail kind of makes a loop around this park, so you can't demo the whole thing at once without closing down everything within that loop. So I think you'd want to do it half at a time, and then I would want to work with your team to figure out, the best time to do that considering park operations and time of year to sort of mitigate, rain delays and disrupting park operations.
If we wanted to straddle 2 fiscal years to break it up financially,
Not a problem.
would that change the price?
Yeah, so I'm noted in the bottom of that itemized estimate, it would just affect the mobilization fee. So we have a mobilization fee that sort of covers us getting everything out there and setting up all the temporary facilities. We did mention too, I had some back and forth with your committee about temporary facilities that might be required, as well as erosion control and tree protection. So, some of that stuff isn't well defined in a sort of brief overview. I think we would probably want to work together to develop more detailed plans for what would be required as far as erosion control and tree protection, and if that's phased out or if we have overlapping redundancies with that might increase the price further. We have construction fencing proposed here to help protect our staging area for equipment and bulk materials throughout construction. So, if we have to take all that stuff down and set it back up, that goes above and beyond the mobilization fee. But I can also, I'd be happy to work with you guys to look at, alternative trail surface materials. You could probably exhibit some cost savings and, a pervious concrete or, concrete sidewalk trail. Some of that you could also experience some cost savings in removing that limestone blocking. That edging kind of drives the cost up with this, stabilized decomposed granite material because of the method in which you have to put down the blocking and then put the surface material in between that blocking is more labor intensive than if you were to remove the blocking entirely. So there's some value engineering alternatives I'd be happy to run through with you guys, given the opportunity to engage in more of a, consulting fee, or as a consultant with you guys. We can develop those site-specific plans that would detail all those value engineered alternatives.
So that would affect more the aesthetics of the trail itself. If we wanted to have that finished look with the concrete edging versus a natural edge, am I correct?
Yes, most definitely. So I just wanted to put that out there because this, trail proposal is a substantial investment. I know that, cost savings is of the utmost importance for every person and community. So if there are those types of issues, I'd be happy to work with you to, compromise, but all of that comes with, different aesthetic finishes.
I have a question. If you did, if we didn't do the limestone border, would we be unable to use the decomposed granite
No, yeah, we can still use the decomposed granite.
Okay,
You know, I
you
could-
just have an edge that seems like weeds would just tear across that, and that's sort of a maintenance thing.
Yeah, I mean, your periodic maintenance that you do to mow the park should keep up with that as long as you have regular trail use.
Okay.
And I can be happy to give y'all a little tour of the Violet Crown Trail that we've built here in Austin, and which we don't have that limestone blocking, and how that trail holds up over time to our, you know, we maintain that trail twice a month with mowing and blowing, and it, you know, the only thing that really allows weeds to grow well into that trail surface is if people aren't using the trail, you know.
How much cost savings would that be? Like,
So we could go through this itemized cost proposal, and you look at the application of new material, and we could take out the sand, the limestone block, some of the backfill, and then we could also look at, you know, how that impacts our labor and timeline. But that would be a little bit more.
ballpark, though, 20%, 30%?
I'd have to.
Okay,
I
I
don't
was
wanna.
just curious, yeah.
I don't wanna
No, that's fine, that's fine.
step on.
You don't want it on
my
official
time.
record,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So.
I also have a couple more questions. When the way you propose the trail here, it looks like we're gonna have to dig down 6 or 7 inches.
Correct.
What do you do when you run into a tree root? Do you let it
Well,
live and
Yeah,
work
I would
around
want to
it?
work with Ted and his team to identify those, you know, critical root zones and how we would address that issue. In some of those cases like that limestone blocking, you know, we could incorporate some of that blocking in certain areas that would help us to raise the trail above those critical roots and build the trail above grade so that we're not disturbing that root zone as much while we're building the trail. We can implement some, you know, sand bridging techniques that'll
Okay.
allow drainage underneath the trail system to sustain those root systems. But I think all of this, you know, looks like we have almost 3 overlapping drainage plans as a part of what I've heard today. But I think all of this needs to be thought of as one sort of project and phased appropriately, because, you know, even Mr. Gaines, his plan for drainage underneath the trail would need to be thought of as part of this trail project, in addition to what Ted and Moss Verde is proposing, and any other, you know, improvements to that parking area would be of benefit to consider before investing in, you know, trail rehabilitation in that area.
So Tim, the reason I brought this product, your work, to the attention of the Park Commission is because I see it as being a sustainable approach to this trail. So for the group's benefit, why don't you tell them how long you've been working with this product and what do you see as being the advantage of this product versus what we're using now, just in case they don't understand.
Okay, yeah, well, so I've been working with this type of stabilized decomposed granite material for 8 years now. I've worked to sort of pioneer some, you know, pushing the limits of its application in different types of environments. I think some of the benefits associated with this material is that it provides a natural surface texture and appearance as opposed to concrete of any type. You still get that feel. It doesn't radiate as much heat as concrete does. The stabilizer product that I'm proposing on the south and eastern side of the park, you know, it's water activated, so, you know, when we're speaking about its pervious nature, it sort of absorbs water and holds it, and then disperses it back into the, you know, surrounding area slowly as it dries. So it helps to sort of prevent, you know, that water binds that material together. It does get a little soft when it's hydrated, but it'll heal itself. So
Is
it's
it
sort of
kind of like a
self-healing
gel?
material.
Does it form like a gel?
Yeah, pretty much, but you can't see it.
Got
You
it.
know, it just becomes sort of soft and heavier.
Yeah.
And so it does release that water back into the environment and help to slow that water down. It helps to reduce that energy flow. I think that, you know, the one thing is that stay lock is an expensive material. So, I want to be respectful of everybody's budget and time. And I know there's also probably, some considerations when it comes to this price point of something like this and y'all's ability to, you know, hire a contractor at that price point. So I think there's going to be some, probably would want to engage in some consulting prior to going to a public bid with something like this.
Could we use I'm just noticing the Staylock is like quadruple the price of the
Correct.
the stabilized. Could we just use the Staylock where we know we've got a flow across the trail?
Correct.
And just figure that we may have some additional maintenance
Yes.
on the other parts, but we're gonna have maintenance anyway.
Yeah, very rarely do we build any trail system with one single type of trail surface material. You know,
So that we could knock maybe $25,000 plus
Yeah.
out of that.
Yeah, again, I would want to work with Mas Verde or the, you know, whoever's doing the drainage, the
Yeah,
engineering
fine.
drainage report to ensure that we're targeting those correct areas and developing appropriate drainage solutions for those targeted areas.
Okay.
Any more
But yeah, there's
questions?
also a budget line item in here for concrete transitions. I explained this to the group when we were out in the field, but where you have this, you know, natural material button up against a concrete surface, you need to incorporate for ADA compliant concrete to organic material transitions. So there's that to consider. I heard some stuff about the bleachers. I noticed some erosion behind those bleachers. So I think that there's, above and beyond this sort of initial itemized estimate, there's a lot of details that warrant some additional investigation and
Mhm.
detail.
So, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Do you all want to discuss it generally right now, or do you wanna just think on it, or are you ready for the committee to come back to him and get some more, specific? Do y'all want?
What-
got some look-
what is
I
the other
think,
bid that-
I think we've gotten as specific as we can.
So Mary Elizabeth, but he did say that, if, cost was an issue, that they could make some other recommendations. I guess, Ashley, what do you think the best way, cause it's kind of like chicken and egg. How do we ask council what their appetite for spending $250,000 on trail maintenance is, without making a motion necessarily? Or do we have to have a motion that says, the park commission recommends, moving forward with this?
I think it would either be that, like you said, moving forward with a specific recommendation, or the budget process is kicked off, and so you could request, I believe by your July meeting, we will need any kind of park commission request for the budget, and so at that time, you could say, here's how much we're thinking for trails, how much we're looking for trees, and those would kind of go to the council in like a prioritized list, and so they could take a look at that and go, oh, well, maybe we don't have enough for this, but we could do these, and so they might then incorporate those in budget. So I wouldn't say those need to be tied to a specific proposal, but it'd be helpful to have some kind of idea of what the numbers would be for that.
Well, I have a question too, because clearly anything that's done with the trail, you will want to consult with whoever's working to help us with the drainage as well. So we have these drainage proposals. I'm assuming it's gonna be up to council whether to go with one or the other.
Right. So the two IWS proposals, council already paid to have those created, and so it would just be then them directing staff to go ahead and get bids for that. Whether they would approve the Mas Verde proposal, that would also have to go to council if they would like to start that study. and then the same for any of these. And then for the trail, I will say, and for really anything over 50,000, we would have to bid out competitively. So that's just
So
something
the
else to
council
keep.
does not need a recommendation for us on any of the drainage, like the Moss Verde, that's already.
They did ask for them to come here specifically, so I think they would like a recommendation from this body. If there was no actual recommendation, we could at least say we presented it here. Maybe y'all were working back and forth with some questions for the contractors, but I believe they would like a recommendation from the Park Commission on those.
I just think it would be important to know what we're gonna do in that regard so that we can speak more knowledgeably about the trail with the people giving us information on the trail.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm kinda stuck, it's chicken and egg again.
Right.
You know,
Right.
which direction to go with that, but I think those pieces are important and need to work together.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, either way you look at the, you know, trail rehabilitation project, you're looking at more than $50,000. And to go to a public bid for a competitive bid, you're gonna need a set of plans so that you're comparing apples to apples when you go to public bid. So, I mean, we'd be happy to work with you to develop those plans so that you at least have a detailed idea of, you know, a plan set to go to bid with, and then y'all can take it from there. And that can be used in conjunction with your engineering team to
How much
figure out
does
drainage
that cost?
solutions. I'll have to talk to my team about that, but that's something I didn't come here ready.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of let y'all know that that's probably, if that's the, you know, considering that you have a $50,000 cap, you're gonna probably want that, because we're talking about erosion controls, tree protections, temporary facilities, staging areas. You know, you'll need a plan.
If we said, okay, let's define, this looks to me like the best possible trail.
Yeah.
I see with the compacted earth and the road base and this to me is
Edging.
a
Yeah.
very nice trail.
Yeah.
If we said we're just gonna go with, we're not gonna have the rock border, we're just gonna have, decomposed granite, stay-lock as needed, would you definitely wanna put a layer of, road base under that? Or if you don't put the road base down, you just wind up with the same thing we have now, which is unstable
Yeah.
surfaces.
The reason for the base is that it sort of ensures, you know, if you have a flexible compacted base down there, that will
It's gonna
reflect,
set up.
that will set up your finished surface to reflect that base. You know, you could look into Portland cement stabilized earth as opposed to base, but you would still need to till in Portland cement, and we would need to get engineers out to see if what level of Portland cement we would need to mix into the soil to compact that earth without needing to, you know, bring in base material.
It looks to me like the big cost drivers that we might be able to fiddle with are reducing the amount of stay lock and considering not using the block border.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
the block border does add quite a bit of labor.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be done by hand, and either way you sort of look at that, either with a concrete footer or, you know, the Portland cement stabilized sand, it has to be done you have to back yourself out of construction in a very methodical, labor intensive manner for that type of trail.
Okay.
I think there's opportunity for cost savings, but I don't know if you could get it done in $50,000 chunks very efficiently. I think you'd end up paying more than this if you did it with that, considering redundancies and mobilization and temporary facilities and such. I'd be happy to work with y'all further to, you know, figure out what all this looks like, what those alternatives may look like. But I think all of that requires a bit more time and energy from our team. That would require some compensation.
Could we, as a park commission, this is gonna sit here unless we come up with some sort of something to send to city council, because I know they'll go, eek, that's so much money. So I'm thinking the minimum trail, which probably wouldn't be as durable as this, but we do have a maintenance crew. So,
So,
Could you define and rough in a quote on what you would consider, seeing what we have as a minimum trail?
Yeah, I think for
Change it on the Staylock and the border?
yeah, I think for we can talk a little bit more about that after this meeting, what that would look
Okay.
like.
Okay.
And we could define a broader spectrum of, top of the line, stabilized decomposed trail, concrete or pervious concrete, what that looks like, or, some sort of hybrid between the two.
Okay.
But,
Or maybe just the trail without the border.
correct. Yeah, I mean, I think
Use the stay lock but no border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All of those are viable options, and it just really depends on what the community's looking for and what the budget is looking like. There's a lot of factors that go into figuring out the optimal solution for your needs here.
Does doing it in two shots, is that a reasonable, is that a too big a chunk, or is that
No.
about the right size?
I think that's plenty. 900 linear feet. It's not that much trail at all, and it's pretty accessible. The way that this trail is aligned, we have parking lots at sort of two halfway marks, so accessing it from both ends is doable without the risk of damaging trail that was just built. That's the big thing about phasing, is making sure that you're not having to travel over or damage a trail or repair it as a part of building the next phase.
okay. In the interest of time, because I have to leave here by 1:30.
And I need to leave at 1:20.
Okay, at 1:20, so we
I'm
have
just about
1 minute. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well,
So the other presentation that we had was the trees. And I know that is Mas Verde, and they have been sitting on here very patiently. So Mas Verde, can you join us again and in 2 minutes talk through the tree proposal?
So we're coming up with planting trees along in between, so on the east side of the ball fields, in between the narrow strip between the trail, the existing trail, and the gravel-ish parking lot. And I think there's a proposed new parking lot, asphalt drive parking lot there. So yes, a line of trees there, and then there's a small triangular kind of area that's closer to the butterfly garden. And on the other side of the trail from the butterfly garden, that we were going to put some trees there. And I was told to go with larger size trees, just kind of shoot high, and then if y'all need to come down on the budget, we can go down from there. I expect 65-gallon trees. So there's equipment and labor, and then the tree costs themselves are significant. So we can bring that down with smaller specimens, but we can still have sizable, a significant visual impact with like 30-gallon trees, and we would save quite a bit of money there. Any questions?
So you had a bunch of things in here that are not trees?
So I am also proposing, thank you for the reminder, I'm also proposing to plant some shrubs and deeper rooted perennial grasses in the root zone of these trees. I think aesthetically it won't look, it'll kind of, have the balance between looking a little bit wild, but it won't look wild. They just won't be just single solitary trees in a row. They'll have a bit of planting around it, flowering plants, some grasses. That all, from a functional standpoint, helps with water infiltration into the soil profile, Therefore, irrigation, your irrigation is a little more efficient. We would be adding 3 zones to the existing irrigation system for these trees as well. And also temperature control, moisture control, doing little small groups of plantings around the base of these trees help the trees in the long run, instead of solitary trees in a line in between a trail and a parking lot.
Were all the trees, I mean, how many trees were going in that area number 2?
Hold
I think
on.
we discussed 3.
Yeah, 3. I believe 3. Yeah, and then
Area 2 is beside between the pool and the fields 3, 4, and 5, and what I'm calling area.
Because there's 13 trees listed on the bid. So that's what I'm just wondering, if there's only 3 going next to the parking lot, where are the other 10 going?
Oh,
they're
I'm
going
sorry.
along the strip of grass that's in between the trail and the parking lot on the east side of the ball fields.
Okay.
So that would get how many trees there?
I believe around 10, 9 or 10 is what I was thinking, on 20-foot spacing.
Okay.
9, I think.
Okay. Okay.
this looks good, Ted. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you all.
This is exactly what we asked for. I appreciate that.
Yep. Really nice. So we got a lot of information today. We have not taken any action on anything. The one thing that I do want to almost go back to is the Mas Verde drainage, because you're saying that council wanted our recommendation. Of course, none of us saw it until today. Does anyone feel like they're capable of making a recommendation with such little information?
I think it would be okay. So this is not going to go to their meeting tomorrow, anyways.
Oh,
And
great.
I believe y'all's next meeting is still before their July meeting, so we could kind of have everybody take a chance to review it. It may be helpful if you have questions ahead of time to let me know. I don't know that Ted will be able to join that meeting.
Sure.
He may, but I don't want to commit him to that. So if you could send any questions or anything you have ahead of time, I can share that with him. Maybe we can work that out before the meeting, and then we can post it for action next month.
Okay. And I want
And I'll just say, Ashley, if you want to share my email with the committee, anybody is welcome to contact me at any time and ask me questions about that proposal or the tree proposal or whatever, and I'm happy to answer anything.
That would be great. Thank you, Ted. I'll do that.
And I want to take a second to thank Abe, Chris, Ted, Tim, all who were amazing. This was like the most information we have ever packed into a 1-hour meeting. And I'm sorry for being so aggressive on timing, but I wanted to make sure as many people as possible could still be with us and talking about it and get it. So I think we're going to absorb this. What I am going to encourage is each of the committees reach out to Mas Verde or anyone or Ashley to get more information, so that at our next meeting, the goal will be to have some formal recommendations, and those can come from the smaller committees. So if you guys want to meet in your smaller committees and dig into some of this information a little bit more, including getting Ted or Tim to give us, okay, if we were to scale this back to whatever on the walkway, or if we're going to scale it back to just trees along there, what would sort of our least expensive and dream expenditure look like?
I think we got the dream trail.
Yeah, I think we did too. Yeah. So now it's just
Fine.
scaling it back a little bit. But I'm really excited about the progress we made today. And thank you so much, Mary Elizabeth, for joining us on your vacation. And thank you, Kevin and Phil, for coming and listening in today. So you could see faces and hear tone of voice. And also for not speaking and letting us have all the time. Anything else?
We're scheduled for July 9th.
Okay, we're scheduled for July 9th. And, great, excellent. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Aye.
Thank you.